guys know the little things make a big difference. Take a lot of notes, ask a lot of questions, and just remember, he'll probably be here after for a little bit if you guys have any in-depth questions, but a lot of knowledge to be learned. So thank you for being here today.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you. All right, so I'm in the Layton office. See a lot of faces that I haven't seen for a while. I came up inside George here a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I haven't been in this office for over 3 years. I know, yeah. So I didn't know where I was going.
And GPS to get here.
So I just made a handful of notes. Ruby asked me to talk about anything I wanted to talk about. So I thought about, there's so many little tweaks that we can make in our business that really do make a big difference. And I'd say over the course of my 17 years selling real estate, that consistency has been one of the best things that's made me the most amount of money. So being consistent in prospecting, being consistent in keeping a daily schedule. So I'm going to talk about some of those little things today. My assistant's amazing, and I gave her notes, and she put together this really awesome PowerPoint, I thought, with very little input from me. So I'm always looking for efficiencies with systems and things, never with people. Never want to make efficient people. Your conversations, you want to make those powerful. So I'm looking, can I have a better contact rate? Right now I'm about 10 contacts an hour. Can I make that better? Can I focus better? Can I have better lists? What can I do there? What's my closing rate? Whether it's setting the appointment on the phone or at the listing presentation. How can I systematize when I communicate with people, which we'll talk about more of that. But again, I'm never gonna sacrifice more contacts for worse conversations with people. Okay, if you don't prospect every day, you should. And if you're not interested in it, you might not find a lot of value in what I talk about today. And so I spend 3 hours a day on the phone prospecting. And sometimes I go out door knock, but that's separate from my 3 hours a day on the phone. And so I have to find ways to keep myself involved, engaged, because 3 hours on the phone, standing up, sometimes sitting down, if you get tired, can be boring, can be very monotonous. There's a thing called repetitious boredom, which everybody has to go through, and it's better to do it doing something that makes you a lot of money. So I look for games. I'm going to ask a few of you that I know prospect a lot what you do, but so there's lots of my coaches have taught me over the years different things. So one is, okay, if I'm making a just listed, just sold call, let's track how many times can I get down to question number 5, and how can I get better at getting down to question number 5? So, okay, I'm going to make 15 contacts or 20 contacts. And I got down there, 4 times today. Can I make it 5 times tomorrow? Let's hear from some of you, the prospect, and you. Can you think of games that keep you engaged that you do?
Yeah, so rather than prospecting, I'm dialing for dollars. So every time I talk to somebody, I put down a $sign. By the end of the day, there's a lot. It's a good day. There's not. You got to keep going. Or I'll play the penny game. Every time I close, I'll slide a penny at 5 in my door.
It's good. It's a good game. April?
My newest game, I literally bought myself gold stars, and I'm putting gold stars. You can come and see in my office. Put gold stars when I do what I'm supposed to do, and it just makes me happy. I mean, I know it's really good.
Takes you back to yourself.
I know, but I heard somebody say nobody's gonna give you a pat on the back, so a gold star is your own pat on the back.
So your mom was the best at games, and she would have dance music going. I prospect with some people on a Google Meet. In fact, I can pull them up right now because I know they're. Yeah, for another 45 minutes, they're on there, which is where I'm supposed to be, so, but I'm here today. So I have two people that I'm on a Google Hangout with every day, 9 to 12, and they're on there, I'm on there. We have accountability to each other. We send out a text message throughout the day if we set up an appointment, qualified listing appointment. So whatever we can do to keep yourself engaged or involved. So prospective people make it fun. Next is the best word in prospecting. Don't get hung up on the person that just swore at you. Don't get hung up on, or don't get caught up on your negative mindset. Just say next and move on. All those negative people and negative conversations that get other people off the phone are great, because that means they're off the phone. You're on the phone, you're prospecting. Okay, I changed this the other day. So you've heard about the magic of compounding interest. Pay attention closely to the magic of consistency. So small, consistent things done over time produce amazing results. Think about erosion, very small, consistent bit of water can create a massive river, and small, little, consistent daily habits can create a lot of money in your bank account. So one of my coaches last year looked at my daily contacts for the year and figured out if I would have made one more contact per day for the whole year, I would have made like $45,000 more. Just one contact more. And so look at those things that you can do every single day. Maybe it's sending, you're sending a little text every day. Or maybe you're just consistently reaching out every single week to all your sellers, all your buyers. Just something small, even if it's a voicemail. Okay, this has made me a lot of money. So show up every day. Sometimes you'll just run into the deal. Because I've been on the phone calling, or I've gone and door knocked or something, even if I was horrible, I've just got deals because I just happen to be the one there. I've made phone calls to for sale by owners and been the very first one to contact them, and they were just looking for an agent. They put it up because they didn't know anyone. Or I just happened to call at the right time. I was in the right place, and they're like, yeah, come on over. We're sick of this. We're ready. Has anyone called around a listing called a just listed or just sold? And they're like, how did you know? Who told you? Yeah, the best. You're like, I did nothing but my job. I just called. Wasn't anything special. Okay, let's see here. When you lose, and you will, remember that amateurs quit or dwell on the loss for a long time. Professionals get over it very quickly. They learn, move on to the next. I wish I could give credit to where I heard this. It was on a podcast somewhere. It was like an Olympic athlete that talked about the difference between amateurs and professionals, and the difference is just simply a professional gets over the loss quicker and they move on. They learn from it. So whatever you do, maybe it's maybe you lost a deal and it meant a lot to you. How quickly can you get over it and move on to the next and learn from that? Okay, have a calling order. So every day I get on the phone, I have an order of sources that I'm going to call. So I'm going to call expireds. I'm going to call for sale by owners. I'm going to call this many people in my past client or center of influence database. I'm going to call just listed and just sold. Who do you call, and how can you make it systematized so that every day you know what you're going to call? Along with that is prepare your contacts before, so that you don't have to waste that time preparing during your prospecting time. But one of the worst things you can do is, or that I can do, speak for myself, is spend time during that 3-hour block of time looking for people to call. I need to have it organized, I need to have it ready to go, because when I get out of the habit or out of the routine of my calling, it's a lot harder for me to get back in. Who in here consistently prospects? Okay, you have a calling order. Think about it. You don't want to, if you have a 1-hour block of time and you have 50 contacts or 50 contacts to make and whatever it might be, but you run out of that, are you prepared for what's next?
Just a quick question, what does that look like for you? As far as, how is that, is it the night before, is it?
So some of them are just there, like expireds, new expireds. I call new expireds. I call the last couple of days of expireds first thing. I'll call any new for sale by owner leads, and then I'll call my hot ones. Those are my top three things that I'll do. And then I have which we'll talk about here in a minute. I take my center of influence, my past clients list, and divide it up, and so I call 13 of those a day. And so I know, okay, so I call the hottest things. I'll call 13 of those. And then I'll go back and call the expired and for sale by owners again, hoping I can catch them on a second call. And if I can get one more person on the phone because of that, that's a win. And then I'm going to call after past client center of influence, and I call just listed, just sold, to usually fill up that time. And I prepare those. My assistant will put those into Mojo when I list the property, and so then it's still in there when it's all just sold.
So you have that systematic that you're talking about all ready to go, so it's kind of a plug and play.
Yeah.
Or a brand new agent or somebody that's not doing that consistently, it might be the night before or an hour before.
Yep.
Preparing, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, one of my coaches always said, before you leave the office, prepare your call list for the next day.
If you talk to somebody when it's just listed, do you call that same person when it's just sold?
Yeah. Depending on the conversation, but yeah, they're still on the list. Yeah, and I want to make a note in there so that I know that I actually talked to them. Because I've made many times where I haven't made a note. They're like, yeah, we spoke, and that's, you don't sound so good. Okay, track your numbers consistently for 90 days to understand your numbers. So these are the numbers that I track pretty consistently, maybe a few others, but it takes about 90 days to really understand, like, hey, how many contacts does it take me to get an appointment? How many appointments do I have to go on to get a listing or get a contract signed? Really important, so you can then look at that and say, now I know, like, man, I'm what do they say the average list to closing ratio is like 20%, National Association of Realtors, and so you can say, okay, I'm hopefully way better than the average, but am I 50%, and can I get it up to 60 or 70, 80%? How can we improve that? And if you've noticed, there's no order to this, so it is random. There are just the little things. Momentum, I found that the best time to set an appointment or to get a new listing or do anything is right after you've just had a big win. So if you're on the phone, you set an appointment, sometimes if you're like me, you're very tempted to be, yeah, I did it, done. But you keep going and you're more likely than ever to set that next appointment. So stay on the phone, keep prospecting, you get a win, you're likely to get a second win. Does anyone record your prospecting phone calls? Yeah. It's fun, isn't it?
It's the worst.
It is the worst.
But you see yourself getting better. And-
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. So, does anyone use Mojo in here to dial? Okay, so Mojo has an option to record your calls. Other CRMs do. My CRM that I use to call that I have my past clients in, all the calls I make in there are recorded. So I can go easily listen to those. So look for ways to record it. You just need to, the app that I have on my phone that tape a call. It's what I use for my coaching calls, but you can jump on, you can record everything. So make sure you're recording a couple calls a day, maybe a couple calls a week if you're starting out. Go back and listen and give yourself a lot of grace. Be very kind. Only listen when you're in a good spot. Be kind to yourself. It can be rough, but just look at what one thing can I do better, and then focus the next day's calls on that one thing. So, yes,
I just wanted to add to that, it's horrifying to listen to your calls, but don't forget to also listen to what you're doing great.
Yeah.
Because then that's what you can continue to do. You're like, oh, they responded really well with that. You know, I'm gonna keep adding that to my calls, because you forget those. Forget the mistakes you make, but you also forget the good calls you have. So this is awesome.
good, very good. I'm working, or I was working for a little while at just matching the initial hello or hi that I heard on the phone. You know, simple little things like that. How can I get, I thought I was good at it. And then my coach pushed me to start this back up again a while ago, and I listened to it. I was not that good. I was not consistently good. So what one little thing, start with some little kind things and move on to some bigger things. And
I find it's interesting because during certain things, I think I sound fine, but my darling husband pointed out one time, you upswing on certain things that you say, and I'm like, no, because from my heart, I'm really coming with a good intention. However, I've been doing a lot of recordings and listening to them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just heard myself. I'm like, that's exactly what he's talking about. I was being completely sincere responding to someone. However, it was such of an upswing that it sounded very insincere and fake. I said, oh, now I get it. I understand what he's saying. So just listening to your fluctuation in your voice, slowing down, speeding up. It doesn't matter our intention, it matters how we're being perceived.
Yep.
So if you can listen to it with like an open ears and just go, how would this sound to someone listening to it outside of the unit? How is that being perceived? Anyway, that was fun.
that's good. Okay, so one thing that I practice, I try to practice consistently. I'm not perfect at this. Those in the late office can attest. My goal is to be in the office in the morning. As one of my coaches said, in-house in the morning, out-house in the afternoon. So in the office in the morning, prospecting, and then in the afternoon, get out of the office. I don't know about you. The worst thing that can happen to me is that I get in the office at 7:45 when I get in, and I leave the office at 5 or 5:30. I hate that. And so get out. So 3 o'clock is my time that I try and always be gone. Not perfect at it. You know, keep seeing me in there lately, the last couple of days later than that. But I'm always trying to get out. So in the afternoon, if I don't have an appointment, I'm going to try and preview properties. I'm going to try to go knock on leads for sell by owners, expireds. I'm going to try and do something productive, different than what I've been doing all morning long. So, does anyone else feel like they're stuck in the office, or they're like it's a bad day if you're in all day?
Yeah.
I got a question for you. So do you ever vary from that between prospecting, like the client wants to meet in the morning
Is that my next point?
Is that your next?
No, it's not, but,
Okay, well, if you're gonna cover.
I'm gonna cover that.
Yeah, let's table that.
yeah, just a minute. So I have a systematized plan for calling my past clients in center of influence, so it's really simple. If you haven't already come up with a plan, here's a great one. You take how many people are in that database. You divide it by 13, because there's 13 weeks in a quarter. And you call that many people that week. Really easy, right? And so just figure out, hey, how can I call everybody every single quarter? Now, too much on the slide here. So voice is always best, in person is best, voice is second best. So if you can find a way to try and always be talking to them or seeing them, it's better. Now, we live in a world where people don't like to answer their phones anymore. And so leaving a voicemail, obviously it's better than nothing. Sending a text message with an audio message or a video, great. Sending just a text message, that's okay. Something is better than, so some sort of communication every quarter, but try and hit that. Can I see the person first? Can I talk to them? Talking to them on the phone, of course, is a lot more efficient than trying to see everybody. But do you have a top, like a VIP list of people that maybe you can really make an effort in the afternoon when you're not busy to go and see somehow, get a pop by to their house? And then I always have a script, and I know everybody teaches this a lot, so I'm not really going to jump into this, but always have a script that you're going to talk to them about. Make it sound like it's very natural for you, but make it consistent. Now it can go different directions based on the different personalities that you talk to. But always provide some sort of value when you're on that conversation, having that conversation, or leaving a text or whatever. And then always look for some way to ask for business, ask for a commitment that they'll look for business for you. Look for something that tells them that you're in the market to build your business. You never want somebody, I've had this once where somebody said, oh, I didn't know you were taking on new clients. That hurts. You don't want anyone to ever feel that way.
I have a question for you. So your script, do you change it every quarter? Do you change it every month?
The value I change, the value that I'm talking about. So, is it about interest rates or just general market conditions or something specific? Come by my office, I'll show you
Oh, good.
what I'm doing now. But yeah, it's not rocket science. It's just something that provides a little bit of value to them. Maybe they knew about, maybe they didn't. And it's a conversation starter. Okay, I learned this. So one of my coaches years ago said, why do you go to your closings? Outside of Utah, it's not really Utah, I guess it's required. Is it required? I mean, it's been talked about that it was required years ago. It's recommended. I took a year not going to my closings, and it was horrible. Don't do that. And so what I found is if you don't know that person when you get them as a new client, you go on a listing appointment, say it's an expired listing, take the listing, you see them once, you might only see them once if you don't go to that closing. And that is not good for repeat referral business. And so how often can you see it? Now, you're not going to go drop by the house every week to give them the update on the house, but are there opportunities you can take to see in person? So I'm learning this as we speak of how important this part of my business is. So I go to my closings, even if now I have my closings usually in my office. So that's an efficiency that I've created. Great. Can I have Do I need to go to the whole closing? If it's a buyer, I don't want to sit there for an hour. But sometimes I do. But sometimes I'm just there, meet and greet them. We talk about what's gonna happen when it records and how I'm gonna call them. And move, and then I'm gonna step out and let them finish. So what can you do to make more in person?
Doug?
Yes,
So how did you, it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, you go to the closing for the buyer at the title company.
in my office.
In your office,
Yeah.
all their closings, buyers and sellers are in your office.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Oh, my title gal, that's what I want.
It works.
That's it. Yeah. So there's a few exceptions. Tomorrow I have one that's down here. Because they live in Utah County, close in, it's an estate sale. So a few exceptions, but another thing, I think it's. No, I'll talk about another part of that in just a minute. Any other questions on that? So I have a simple plan for adding people to my database. So if you're not adding to your database regularly, you're losing people from your database regularly. Because their families, oh my goodness. They're just about to start the time management section. So how can you add people to your database on a regular basis? So you're meeting new people all the time. You're hopefully prospecting and talking to potential prospects all the time. And you might run into people that say, hey, I'm gonna do something, but it's not right now. And so what's your minimum requirement to say, I'm gonna talk to this person every single quarter? And I'll tell you mine, you use your own. So for me, if somebody says, I'm gonna sell my home, or I'm gonna buy a home in the next 2 years or sooner. 2 years is my date. Or if they're the person in a neighborhood that knows everybody, they're the connector in that neighborhood. You know, they know the gossip of everything. I want to know them. Maybe I'll call them every month. So those are my two, maybe there's a few exceptions. But if I'm on the phone calling around the neighborhood and they say, yeah, we're gonna sell, but it's not in 2 years. I'll ask what specifically is gonna cause you to sell your home in 2 years. And if they say, we're gonna win the lottery, I realize we're living in fantasy land, call. But if they say, our last son is graduating high school at that time, and then we can move on and do what we've always wanted to do. Great, that's someone I want to keep talking to. So what triggers you to add them? And then what system do you have to make sure that in 30, 60, 90 days, next time you call them, they remember who you are. Because I went through and added a lot of people to my database early on, and I would call them 90 days later, and they have no idea who I am. So I follow this little system. I send them a text message right away, and I tell them, I'm going to send you a text message with my contact information, so you can add me to your phone. You want to be in everybody's phone, because they're not going to answer your phone call if you're not in your phone most of the time. I'm going to drop my card in the mail with a thank you card. Does anyone know Slide Dial, the app Slide Dial? Download it if you don't have it. It's you can record a message on Slide Dial on the app and then put in the phone number, and it goes directly to the person's voicemail. So it goes, George sends them out, Slide Dial broadcast. You wonder like, hey, I missed that phone call. Where'd that come from? I got a voicemail. That's a Slide Dial message. You can do it on a mass scale, what the company does, or you can do it individual. So I send them a Slide Dial message and say, hey, it's great talking to you the other day. I sent my card in the mail. I hope you got it. And might talk about something that we talked about. And say, look forward to talking to you in the future. So I do a Slide Dial because it's very non-intrusive into their life. Like, they don't need me at that moment. We covered that very clearly. I just want to remind them that I'm there. And it's just another touch. And then I call in 30 days from the time that I first contacted them. And you can set up a really quick reminder in whatever system you're doing. You can, once you add somebody to your database, you could set reminders on your Ask Siri, hey, remind me in 7 and 30 days. If you say that, it'll do it exactly that way. To call this person. So I call them, try and get them on the phone or leave a message. Want to make sure you got that information. I'll keep you up to date about real estate. Can you add a little value in that conversation and make it quick? And then I add them to my quarterly calls. But at that point, they've also received a couple of emails from me every month. And studies show that it takes 8 contacts, 8 touches to start building trust. And you want to jumpstart that. And you want to know when you call them in that next quarter that they're going to remember you.
Okay, so you said mail them, so literally put your card and send it in the mail. But then when do you start emailing them?
Right away. I mean, I send an email out to my whole database a couple times a month.
Okay,
So they'll be on that list. Yeah. Any questions on those?
Email's just automated, just your newsletter or something.
Video, a couple videos a month. Yeah.
What system do you use for that?
Viral marketing. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, how do you figure out what value you're going to add to someone in those emails? Do you just talk about the market? Do you have something specific?
In the emails that I send, so one a month, I'll talk about like an update on the market. Maybe I'll talk about just sales and prices or interest rates or some sort of market update. And then the other one is some sort of educational part about the market. Or maybe it's like the one that is going out this week, just says this is what you can get for $1 million along the Wasatch Front, and they have a little tour of a house. I've done videos on like what is meth, what is radon, what inspections you need to do. Yeah, so much you can do there. Any other questions? Oops. How did that skip? Okay. So treat your schedule as sacred time. So to me, that morning time, nothing but this interferes with.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't schedule things during this time. If there's a closing that needs to happen, I might not go to that closing, unfortunately. Or it's in my office and I'm gonna make my visit a lot briefer. Buttons. I'm gonna make that visit a lot shorter. And I'm gonna schedule it around a break that I take. So usually I'll take a break around every hour as I'm prospecting, short break. A snack, a bathroom, whatever. So I'm not gonna schedule any inspections or walkthroughs or showings or anything like that. Now, if somebody calls me and says, come list my house, I'm gonna go. But that's the purpose of what I'm in the office to do. So that's the exception. I'm always looking throughout the day at how can I control my schedule? So I'm not letting somebody else control my schedule. So I'm setting the appointment times. And so I'll say, I'm open at 2 and 4. What works best for you? I'm not going to say I'm open all day. What works for you? You don't call a doctor's office and they say, come in anytime. We're free. You get worried. So set the time. And family time's the same. If you're off on a day or an evening or the weekend, say booked out that day. I'm open, this day or this day at this time. What works for you? And people respect it. And they're not going to question what you're doing during that time when you're booked. They might think maybe it's family time, but they're gonna respect the fact that you said, I'm booked, what works for you? People like busy people. And so you can control your schedule. Does anyone have an experience with that? I know a lot of you do that, Creighton.
I tried to take Cary to breakfast this morning because I knew he'd be down here and he said no. So we prospected him. So,
Yeah,
he was
Yep.
this time this morning.
Yep, so.
Story.
It's a true story. Okay, so whatever you can do, treat that time a very, very important time. That's your most important thing. So you hear time blocking is a popular thing out there. Block off certain times. So again, that 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon for me is out of the office appointment time. Or previewing and door knocking for sale by owners and expired time. Okay, has anyone ever had this? Yeah. Some analyticals in here. And I'm not that analytical, but I mean, that's taught me, of course, catches everybody. So I find it's always better to get started right away than delay. And think I'm gonna do it when everything's perfect. So I haven't gone and door knocked around a new listing because I didn't have flyers. Well, just go door knock around the listing. We'll hand out your card. Text them the link to the website when you talk to them. You know, whatever you're doing, don't get caught up in it's gotta be perfect. If you're not perfect at the script, don't worry about it. Call. You'll get better as you call and as you make those conversations happen. So can you think of anything you're paralyzed by right now in your business? What can you just act on it? Just go and do. I think oh yeah, one more. This is a great one. I love talking about thinking bigger. And I'm always thinking about how can I expand my bubble of thinking. So we live in a great place. It's said that Utah's a bit of a bubble. And the more we can get out of Utah and see other things, the more we expand the mind. Now, that's true for everything, not just the location, but how can we expand the thoughts that we're having about money, about how many transactions we can do, about investing, about anything. So I was like, can I talk to people in or outside of the industry doing a lot more business than me? So who can you surround yourself with in that arena? Where can I go to events where big producing real estate agents are? I know when I first went 16 years ago to a Mike Ferry event, I remember seeing a whole panel of people up on stage and listening to them and watching them. And I was impressed, but then I wasn't that impressed because I was like, these people are just like me. And if they can do it, I can do it. And so the more you're around that and you realize, hey, they're people. They're just people doing a lot more business than me. Let's figure out why they're doing a lot more business than me. And I can do it too. We've got the great benefit, YouTube and podcasts. People are so generous in what they give and talk about. There's just almost everything out there. I've reached out to people on podcasts or on YouTube things and just asked them questions. And usually if they're on that, they're incredibly willing to share one-on-one as well, as long as you respect their time. And then visit places that get you uncomfortable, read biographies. I love reading great biographies of people that have just done so much in every industry and every part of it, not even necessarily in business. So if you know of a great biography, tell me about it because I'm looking for more.
What places get you into?
It's like going to vacationing in new places, like a new big city to go to, or Like I've gone on vacation to this one place in Mexico quite a few times. And we've said, we love it so much, but we've got to go somewhere different next time, just to start seeing different things. And so just experiencing new things. Okay, any questions on thinking big?
Well, not thinking big, but it's not the question. So I know a lot of us probably have a hard time, well, at least me, maybe no one else, but that first call in the morning sometimes is just hard to make. So is there something like a trick or something you do where I've been in the past, it goes, you know what? Or is it just you do it because your job?
Good question. So calling somebody friendly is the best way to get started. Friendly, like a past client that you're like, this will be a great call. I'll make this call, and it just gets the ball rolling. Yeah. Or you can just be like, I'm gonna call the hardest one first. And then everything after is easier. So you really have to play around and figure out like what works for you. Yeah, well, that leads me to my question slide. Oh. Thank you for the transition. Yeah.
What specific podcasts do you like to listen to?
So I listen to, let me tell you.
The housewives one, right?
Yeah, that's one. Let's see, I listen to a couple real estate ones like The Whistle Way and let's see what's the other real estate, Keeping It Real. The Walkthrough, kind of the real estate ones. There's a couple Bigger Pockets ones, like regular Bigger Pockets one, the On the Market. I listen to anything with Grant Cardone. I listen to Ed Milet, Lewis Howes.
School of Greatness.
Yeah, that's what. See on here.
You mentioned your circle of influence, sphere of influence. And if you prepare ahead of time, I'm assuming that means that you're gonna listen to maybe 5 or 6 people that you know, these are the names you can call or reach out to. My question is, how do you go about when you? My thing with that is, I'm like, okay, so some of these people haven't talked to in months, maybe a while.
Yeah.
Is your process phone call, then text? Is it, I'm gonna hit them up on Facebook first, or like, what's your approach there?
I don't do any social media that way. I'm gonna try and think that I'm following them or they're following me. But I'm not very good at social media. Or that's not false, let's say that. So I will call first, and then I'll look and see if I didn't get them on the phone. Have I talked to them recently? So ordered in the past. So usually I'm not talking to them all the time. It's every 3 months. And so if I didn't reach them the last couple of quarters, I'm gonna try harder before I leave a voicemail. So right now, I'm calling in the morning, and then I'll call in like, tomorrow afternoon. Sometime tomorrow afternoon, or Saturday sometime. See, can I get them, and can I call a second time, and then will they answer? And I can get more people that way. There's always a group of people that are gonna answer your phone call. The longer you make calls to them about real estate, the more likely they are to not answer your phone call because they know what you're calling about. And it's not a bad thing. People will just realize, hey, I know he's calling about real estate. I'll listen to his message. And I'll call him when I'm ready, or when I run into somebody. I run into people at the grocery store all the time that I haven't seen for a while, and they'll say, I'm sorry I don't answer. I always get your voicemail. I'm always thinking about who I can refer to you. And it's like, I haven't talked to that person for 3 years. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, just follow up. Do you take the time to put them into a CRM or just do like a spreadsheet? Like, how do you go about like tasking that out? For example, you said, all right, it's been 2 quarters and it's the next step. Put them into CRM, task that out, or you just like put it in planners.
So they are in the CRM. I haven't really set up tasks in there. So I just go from the top of the CRM list, to the bottom, and know that I have to call this many people a day. And then right now I'm making a separate list for the people that I need to call a second time tomorrow afternoon.
This is my last question. Sure. The thing of you provide something of value, like there's always like, hey, here's this article, this blog, how do you go about choosing what thing of value you provide? Like, you go to a certain tool, there's something interesting on the internet, or how do you go about choosing what you provide to your client?
You think about what's the most common question people are asking you. And talk about that. And it could change, like you're calling for a whole quarter. Like, it could change during that quarter. Like there's something really, some big news out there, you know, like all of a sudden interest rates jump up and people are worried about like, what are these interest rates doing? Maybe a change. What you're talking about to that.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you.
How are you, so you're growing your database,
Mhm.
are you calling? I guess my question is, are you growing it with people you don't know? And if you are, then how are you growing, how are you working with the people that you do know? How are you, you do client appreciation events? Do you golf with your buddies? Or is there some other hobby or recreation that you do to develop the relationships you have with your friends, neighbors, or people that are your A+ people?
I'm not very social. So I don't hang out with people a lot. So I don't do that so much. We do client appreciation events. I just do the company
The
ones,
company ones?
which are fantastic. I call them frequently. And then I do have a VIP list, about 50 people, and I'm calling them monthly. And if I can drop by and see them in person sometimes within 2 months, that's always my goal. So I'm always,
So drop by, is it unannounced? Do you have
yes,
dinner with them or?
no, it's usually unannounced. It's like, hey, I was just in the neighborhood looking at this house down the street or something. I'm not very good at the pop buys because I feel uncomfortable. I don't bring like a pumpkin or anything. But yeah, any excuse I can to drop by, I'll take it.
Right.
Or if they call with a question about the value of their home, that's a great one to say, let me drop some information by.
That's helpful. Oh, and one other quick question, sorry.
Sure.
Going back to the CRM, what CRM do you use?
Chime.
Chime?
Yeah, so for me, I'm behind on my goal for the year transaction wise. How do I make sure that I'm creating momentum and consistency instead of thinking about prospecting?
Yeah.
And I need to do both, but I got at least 3 hours.
Who's ahead of their goal this year? Okay. I'll make you go back.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, how do you say it again?
How do I make sure that I'm actually prospecting every day instead of thinking of the big, like trying to get all the contacts in this week to catch up? You know what I mean? Like an idea, I guess.
Well, first, you don't want to get caught up in contact items.
Sure.
Because the goal is to set an appointment. And so can you switch your focus on setting that appointment or a little bit more reward around an appointment rather than hitting your contacts? So right now, if I set an appointment during the day, during the morning, and I go to, and it's 3 o'clock and I don't have an appointment that afternoon, I give myself permission to go home. I don't most of the time, but I can. Like I can feel good about like, I did my job today. That is my most important job for the day. So look at how can you change your mindset around that appointment rather than contacts. Yeah. And then if you haven't set the appointment, why are you leaving the office or stopping door knocking until 8 p.m.?
Thanks. Talk about your accountability. A little bit, like what you've had in the past, what's worked best for you. You maybe help us get on track.
Sure. You'll have your accountability, 20, no? Weren't you in the group?
He was, but he bailed.
Oh. Talking about me, Doug, get real, don't switch things up here, don't switch things up.
He's just saying because you walked in late, that's all.
Okay, I've had all kinds of accountability in the past, whether it's, sometimes it's focused on contact, sometimes it's focused on an appointment a day. Sometimes you want to make sure you're focused on the right thing. So if it is contacts, you gotta be careful not to get contact itis. And just get the contacts, but that's not the goal. It's not making money. And so what can you do? For me, money, like a consequence of money, hasn't ever really been that huge driving factor. But social pressure, that is. So I just have, right now I have a group that I prospect with every day. We send out text messages, we send out a buffalo image that's a long story, but when you set in a qualified appointment, you send out a text with buffalo. And if I'm seeing them send out a buffalo every day, or I just get one and I'm feeling like, what about me? I gotta do this. And the great thing is I'm on with a couple people that are setting more appointments than me. So it's pushing me to get even better. So, social pressure, money pressure, money accountability, embarrassment, eating cat food live on Instagram, shaving your head. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I can give you, I'm sure I can think of more ideas for you.
What are the top 3 maybe hard questions or sound bites that you found is moving somebody down the pipeline, whether it be setting an appointment, getting to the next step, moving it forward? You're finding works right now.
Right now, right now we got to find people that have to sell, right? People that just want to sell are having a hard time trading a 3% rate for a 6% rate. And so it's finding out that, digging deeper in that motivation. What's important about that? Tell me more about that. What's that going to do for you? What happens if it doesn't? If your home doesn't sell, or if you don't buy a home? I'd say motivation is probably my biggest thing right now. Just asking those questions. If I think of other things, I'll tell you. Yeah.
What if it's a buyer, like I think we have people that are working with buyers and they're just dragging their feet getting the qualification done, or they're just not ready to make that next move, but the meeting went great and they're ready to go, however, they're dragging their feet. I mean, I think that would be helpful.
I don't run into that much,
Okay.
but I would just say, just asking really good questions.
Yeah.
Just like you told me when we met, this is the reason you want to do this. Is that still true?
Going back to their goals, their visions. What
Yeah.
they're looking for. Because I know we have buyers agents in here that are really always struggling with that sometimes, because they're like, oh, yes, we're qualified, but they're not making that next move. When they were excited, they're motivated. Have you, like, something that you say that's a good follow-up question to get them to move forward? I mean, of course, the motivation is there.
Yeah, it's hard to motivate the unmotivated. So just figuring out what is their motivation. I know one of the things I'll often, I have a couple buyers agents who work with me. I work with buyers, but work with more. And they'll, if they've shown them homes a couple times and they haven't bought when we think they should have bought, we'll have to go back and requalify them and ask them, when we first met, you told me this, this, and this. Do I have that right?
Great.
So, yeah. I see another hand.
Well, I was just gonna say something I know about you, Doug, is that you are very comforting. I think a lot of buyers right now, they're just this fear of the unknown. They're not quite sure how to move forward.
And I think just your tonality, the way that you talk to people is very comforting and soothing. And I think some of us that are expressive drivers, when we dial it back and we can go slow like you do and just talk the way that you do, this gets people off the fence all the time. We're like, we're gonna do this together. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna get you to your goals. We're gonna be looking back at Christmas time and see what we did here. We're gonna be excited about it. It's gonna be a couple of things that might be really good. You might be heavily excited about it.
Yeah,
And you
that's
did
good.
it really, really well.
Oh, that was really good.
Write that
I'm
down.
learning from you.
No, but just your voice, just the voice, the way that you talk is very comforting.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any other questions? Any questions online? We have quite a few that are here. So you're welcome to unmute real quick.
I have a question. What are some of your beliefs that have changed over the years? So for example, when I hear you talking about your SOI and you're talking to them about, I need you to, that's not the right word, but you're asking them for business and
Mhm.
things like that. I can tell that there are some beliefs that I need to change to help me ask some of those questions. So can you think of beliefs that have changed over the years that have helped you become more successful?
Wow, that's like
Good question.
the question that I could,
I can ask you another time.
that's a really good question. So, well, that whole thing about thinking bigger there is about changing your beliefs. I would say, I remember starting out and I did the JTM program, where's Russ? Right here. There. Russ taught me 17 years ago in JTM, a global banker.
Wasn't that?
Journey to Mastery.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's awesome. And we had the jelly bean jar and we call people were jelly beans. And I called them every month. And then at some point I changed that to every quarter. But there was always that, I'm sure you probably have all felt this way, that you're sounding desperate when you're calling. And that's transitioned a lot from feeling desperate to feeling like a benefit. I'm benefiting them. And I'm helping. And then I've helped them enough that I can feel very good about asking them for a commitment to look for business. So I always ask, if I got them on the phone, I'm always asking, who do you know? Who do you know in your family thinking about buying or selling soon? And then I'll always end and say, whenever you hear of somebody thinking about buying or selling, will you think of me and call me right away? So some sort of commitment. Now, sometimes people are like, honestly, I just read this, my granddaughter's an agent now, and God, send them to her. So it's important you know that. Now, it doesn't mean that granddaughter is going to be in business next year. So I wouldn't drop that person altogether. But ask for those commitments. One thing,
Okay, thanks.
like I could write a book on that question.
Doug, we have a question online. What keeps you most motivated when things get stale or monotonous?
Most motivated, textbook answer would say, look at my goals. And look at what I want to accomplish. I don't always do that. A lot of it's just accountability, it's social pressure from the people that I surround myself with. That helps me out a lot. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll put my screen on, turn my video off and mute myself, and they'll text me, "Where are you, Doug?" And I need that. So having
Yeah.
good people around you.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shauna. Anyone else?
All right. Hope it was helpful.
Thanks, Doug.
That was great.